getting cancer.
Hello, everybody out there in the podcast world. Welcome to the we don't have a name for this podcast yet podcast. I am going to be your host for the evening. My name is Max. I like football, I like beer, and I like women. Not in those particular orders, but I like all those things. So, joining me tonight on this wonderful, awesome edition of this podcast that is still yet to be named, I've got my buddy John, the bearded one, Neckridge. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, I'm feeling pretty good. I got a beard, so things are pretty good,
All right. I like it. And also joining us today, the man really needs no introduction, but we're gonna give him one anyways. Joining us as well is gonna be the chef man, Bronson. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, my man. It's good to be here this fine evening.
All right. So we're gonna talk some football. Everybody's favorite pastime, I believe, and I know it's one of our favorite things to always talk about, only because we are the shit talkers of our entire group. The only thing that could top us is probably Garrett, but since this is an audio podcast and there's no sign language available,
That's tough.
All right, so
We love you, Garrett.
we love you, Garrett,
love you.
if you're listening
Yes.
to this. So tonight we're gonna talk about what a fucking incredible. That was an amazing Thursday night football game, which we haven't had in God knows how long. But man, I'll tell you what, I am so fucking happy for the Cleveland Browns. They have had just the worst luck, the worst everything, and you're watching the game at halftime or a little bit before halftime. They're losing 14-3 or 14-0, I believe, actually, and they're just getting their asses handed to them. And then Tyrod gets injured. All of a sudden, Baker comes onto the field, and he just starts lighting up, and he starts getting the crowd into it, and everybody is just going insane. And ultimately, Baker Mayfield, without throwing a touchdown, but does catch a 2-point conversion. How you doing, Tom Brady? It's just amazing. It's just, John, how do you feel about Baker Mayfield? What do you think of last night's performance?
I mean, the energy in the field, the last couple seasons has been pretty dull. And, Tyrod, he's one of my boys. But, even before he got injured, the crowd was calling for Baker to come on the field. And unfortunately, Tyrod gets hurt. He suffered a concussion and had to leave the game. But, I have never really seen the field at Cleveland like that before. Everyone was going crazy. Baker comes on the field, and he's throwing some incredible passes out there. This is, it's incredible. Cleveland, they haven't really had anything to really cheer for their football team for, a long time. And here comes this rookie, comes on the field, marches down the field in a 2-minute offense at the end of the first half, and they get a field goal, and it just sets the tone for the rest of the game. They come away with the win. It's really incredible. What do you think, Bronson?
Well, what I'm going to go with is, yes, they were absolutely. Let me start with this. That I was extremely excited for Cleveland to get this win. I've been a big-ass Cleveland fan for a very long time.
The beer fridges, baby.
Back to the Braylon Edwards days. And Derek Anderson, pre-Cardinals days, losing his mind. But I was very excited. But I want to temper that excitement just for the simple fact that the fans aren't cheering for Baker because it's Baker. They're cheering for Baker because he was the first overall pick, and the Cleveland Browns finally got their first overall pick quarterback, something they've been waiting for the last 3 seasons, and Cleveland has not delivered on that. And they gave them that, and they gave them the win, and I liked what I saw from Baker, and it was the Jets. So I'm holding my beliefs and my excitement and my hype for later in the season. It was a Sam Darnold's led Jets, but he did look good. I did like his form on the 2-point conversion catch. I would have loved to have seen him throw a touchdown. Isaiah Crowell acted like a douche. Wiping his football with his ass was just very Randy Moss.
Yeah, very Randy Moss-esque.
Yeah, yeah, and
Exactly.
I liked a lot, and then he looked like the asshole. So I mean, I liked what I saw from them, but I will say, in terms of what John was saying, in terms of energy, the Browns have shown that energy for the last 2 seasons on defense, not on offense. The defense has always played exceedingly well and extremely surprising. I don't like to see a Greg Williams defense running as well as it is because I dislike everything that he ever did on the Redskins and Saints. Um, but I definitely have always believed that the energy was there on the defensive side of the ball, and it was nice to see that Cleveland was being also energetic on the offensive side of the ball.
Right.
What I want to talk about more so than anything about acquisitions on the team is not Baker. It's fucking Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry,
Holy shit. When
he he brings another dimension to that team, and he has always had that energy and that swagger on the field. Whenever he played in Miami, he's always had it.
Right.
And
When I watched Hard Knocks. Thank you for the HBO login, Bronson.
You're
But
welcome.
when I watched Hard Knocks, let me tell you, before Hard Knocks, I thought Jarvis Landry was a prima donna. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna front, I'm not gonna say, because I didn't know much about him. I said, here's a guy who's caught in the last couple years 100 balls, yes, but last year he led the league in receptions, but averaged.
But he's also
8 yards.
he's also led the league in receptions since coming into the league, which is
But
quietly
Right.
amazing.
well, and the thing is though is that he led the league in receptions the last couple years, but he wasn't that downfield yard producer. Now again, that could be just because of the offense he was schemed in. That could just be because of Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback. Whatever the case may be, like I said, when coming into the season, I didn't think at the time he deserved the money. But when you watch Hard Knocks, right? When you watch that speech, when he is just going off and telling people, I'm not here to fucking just play the game. I'm here to fucking win, and we need to fucking win. And you see everybody's eyes light up, like, holy shit, this is the guy we got? Yeah, I want to play for that guy. I've never played a down of football in my life. I wanted to go fucking put some pads on and play for Jarvis Landry. Like, I wanted to go throw some blocks for that motherfucker.
Yeah.
So I think the Cleveland Browns have a solid foundation. Again, they have the talent. We talked a little bit about this last night. They have the talent to finish 8-8, 9-7. I don't know necessarily they'll get there this year, but if Baker Mayfield can continue this, and we have to agree, we all have to agree, this is Baker's team now, right?
It has to. There's no way you can put Tyrod back in after the way that Baker came in. I mean, there's no way you can go back to that.
Yeah, I agree. Hugh definitely played I'm Switzerland. I'm not gonna, give up any details at this moment. I'm gonna air quotes watch the tape. And I mean, you don't need to watch the tape to see what happened, but I do not want to discredit for 1 second what Tyrod did the last 2
Absolutely
weeks.
not.
Yeah, Tyrod played really well the last 2 weeks and played really poorly against a very good defense. And you also need to uh, imagine and realize that the Jets defense game planned for Tyrod. They did not game plan for Baker. And that also is going to have a factor in Baker's performance on Thursday. They weren't ready for it. And they probably expected Baker to come out in halftime and play, but they didn't have enough time for preparation to be prepared for the different dimension that he was going to bring to the game.
Right. When you're watching that football game and you see Tyrod, I was at work at the time, so I really couldn't watch and dissect all the plays and whatnot. But from what I watched 3 different option plays that Tyrod played, and all 3 times he got stuffed. And I'm not even talking about, he made it back to the line of scrimmage each time. No, he didn't even get a single yard. He lost yardage. So
Right.
that Jets defense was well coached. They've been a sleeper hit. Surprisingly this year, I thought their defense, just because even though I love Leonard Williams, I love Jamal Adams. I don't think they have any good cornerbacks.
No, they don't.
They've got a rookie cornerback that really needs to temper his anger, because that motherfucker he brings physicality, and I like it, but there's a difference between bringing physicality and hurting your football team. In the last couple weeks, and I can't think of his name. If I pull up the good old scores here. He brings physicality, but he just makes really dumb plays. He's cost the team a couple 15-yard penalties because he wants to sit there and shit talk.
Well, yeah, no, their best corner currently, and he even is suspect at best, is Buster and Buster Screen from Cleveland, ironically.
Not Tremaine Johnson.
I mean, Tremaine is good, but I mean, I don't know. Whenever I see something like pop off a little bit, like I feel like I'm always hearing Buster. But I mean, regardless, like you said, the Jets defense has been extremely well coached. Todd Bowles is highly underrated. He kind of reminds me of a poor man's Lovie Smith. He gets the defense's attention, and they're willing to play for him. Hell, last year with Josh McCown, the Jets were a borderline playoff team. They were better than people expected. They were at one point last season, like 4-3 to start the season.
I think at one point they were tied with New England.
Yeah.
They were.
Lead.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and their receivers, as much as I don't like Robbie Anderson as a person, he played really well. Them getting Jermaine Kearse was really smart for them. Plays well, solid possession receiver. And then Quincy Enunwa, back when, before last season, he was playing on the field, and he tore his Achilles or his ACL or whatever it was on like a primetime game. And I loved what I saw from him almost 2 seasons ago. And he's coming out and proven that he's the number 1 receiver. I mean, they have weapons. I mean, their running back position is mediocre, I'd say. I love Bilal Powell as like a pass-catching back and third down back. Isaiah Crowell, meh. I mean, he's just a slightly better version of Trent Richardson and what he was. But they have a solid team in place. I mean, honestly, if you put any of the top 5 quarterbacks on that team, they're AFC champions. And if Darnold can live up to his expectations, I mean, honestly, they're a playoff team. And I could see that if they stick to their path, man.
How do you feel about the Jets, John?
They're, in week 1, they really surprised everyone when they came out on top, against the Raiders, I believe. I mean, they really...
No, it was the Detroit.
Detroit, yeah. Excuse me. They really came out of nowhere. I mean, here you have a rookie quarterback, and they're like, okay, let's see how he does. And, I mean, they came out...
First fucking pass of his career gets picked off for a pick six.
Yeah. And normally for a rookie quarterback, especially that could be traumatizing. But beginning of the game, they get the ball back, and you still have the rest of the game ahead of you, and they came back and really dominated the game. I mean, like what Bronson said, I mean, they have a pretty solid receiving core, running back core. I mean, I've always been a pretty decent fan of Blau Powell, really great passing back. And Isaiah Corral, I mean, he's pretty solid. I mean, I think he can get the job done. But I mean, this is a team where I feel like if they really stay true to who they are, I mean, they can. They can. I feel like they can get it done. I mean, it's only week 3 heading into the NFL, and yeah, they gave up the Browns' first win in 2 years, but I mean, they have a pretty solid team to move forward, and I'm pretty excited to see how they keep going as a squad. And I don't know. I mean, if they do have the weapons to get it done, it's going to be interesting moving forward.
Well, I'll say this: you take Tom Brady off the Patriots, I'm taking the Jets in that division every year.
Exactly. Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. And I don't disagree with that. I saw a tweet. One of the guys I follow, he's a scout for Bleacher Report, named Brent Sobleski. He tweeted out, I think a week ago, maybe less time or whatever. But you're starting to see in the NFL that average quarterback play is not going to cut it in the league anymore. There can't be a Trent Dilfer anymore. There can't be a Vinny Testaverde. There can't be that guy who's just going to game manage. Jason Campbell, for example, just throwing some names out there. You have to have a quarterback that can make all the throws. You got to have a quarterback that has that poise, has that swagger, has that rally around, factor. So, and you see the teams that have average quarterback play or below average quarterback play even, like the Cardinals. I can't really pin it on Matt Stafford in Detroit. That's just I don't think the veterans like Matt Patricia. But I do believe in Matt Stafford as a quarterback. I think he is a above average quarterback and can lead that team to some victories.
Oh yeah, I mean he leads the league in fourth quarter comebacks, for God's sakes. I mean
exactly. But I mean you look at an older Eli Manning, for example. You wonder if they should have, if they should have either got with Darnold or Rosen or whoever instead of Barkley. And I love Barkley, but man, Eli has not looked good the beginning of this year.
I'd say more so the offensive line hasn't.
And that offensive line is terrible too. I feel bad for Eli because I think he is. Regular season is just run of the mill. He'll get you wins, whatever. But postseason Eli is a scary Eli Manning, and
completely different quarterback. Yeah,
and I just feel bad for him because he has to just get abused. I mean, it's almost like you have to call an abuse hotline every time you watch a Giants game now because of how porous that offensive line is. So,
yeah, no, for sure. But I also will say this 100 times over, they should have taken Barkley every single time at that pick, not even consider a quarterback. Darnold, he was there and highly considered, but there was a lot of question marks there. And if Pat Shurmur really felt like that was the guy, then that's the obvious choice. But he clearly had doubts. And the way I put it is simply as this: if they're bad, and if their record is as bad as their offensive line is, which it very well could be, then they get a top 5 pick again and they get a quarterback. And none of the teams that took quarterbacks, all the bad teams, every team in the NFL right now has their quarterback. Okay.
Well, the only issue is this upcoming quarterback class. There's not, rather than, so this past year, the 2018 draft, you had 3 guys between Baker, Darnold, and Rosen who were legit, this could be the guy, this could be the guy, this could be. They were really neck and neck in terms of, okay, this is a talent. From what I'm hearing and just listening to different podcasts, listening to different scouts, listening to different stuff I see, there's not a consensus number 1 guy. There's not even a guy in this upcoming quarterback class that somebody can go, that's my franchise guy.
Well, I also will say that was the case this year. There was no clear, surefire number one overall quarterback. I mean, Max, you and I were talking the night before the draft, man, about how the news came in that the Browns were going to take Baker, and our minds were blown, man. We couldn't believe that they were going to take Baker. Baker was projected to go in the 10s, the 15s originally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then over the course of the night prior is like all of a sudden Baker's the number one overall pick.
I mean, I expected Baker to go higher. I expected him not to be drafted number one.
Right.
Even though I had him top of my board in terms of the quarterbacks, definitely I was shocked as well. And I agree. There's still time in the college football season for that quarterback to stand out. Now, what the Giants could do is if they like Lauletta, because they did draft Kyle Lauletta in the fourth round out of Richmond.
Loved that pick. But let me ask you a question real quick. Okay, give me your top 5 worst teams in the NFL right now that are going to have the top 5 picks in the draft next year.
I'm going to say Buffalo's number 1.
Okay.
I mean, they're just oh god, they're just awful.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, I'm just looking at the teams right now.
I got to put Arizona at 2.
I got to put Arizona
the way they're
too.
playing, yeah,
You're
especially.
Right.
Got to put them up there.
Sam Bradford has through two weeks of passing. You want to talk about below average quarterback. He has 240 yards passing total the past 2 weeks. That's not going to get it done in the NFL. David Johnson does not look like David Johnson. It's just Cardinals, as much as I like them and I rooted for them, I don't think it's their year this year. I think Larry Fitzgerald I know he said he wants to come, or he came back, he wants to play this season and be done. I don't know if he can go on such a bad year. I mean, I feel bad for him. I really do, because I love Larry Fitzgerald.
If he catches enough passes to surpass T.O., then he's done.
Yeah,
I can see that.
too.
Definitely.
Okay, give me 3.
Detroit. I haven't seen anything from Detroit.
I'd put Oakland before Detroit.
Okay. You could flip-flop between those two. By the way, John Gruden, it's really hard to find a pass rusher. There's number 52 in Chicago that's really, really good. His name is Khalil Mack. I don't know if John Gruden's ever heard of him or not, but he should look into trading for him. And then let's see.
So you're gonna put Raiders at 4, Detroit at 3.
Yeah, and then
okay.
I'm just trying to take a look at the teams. Houston, I'd say Houston at 5. Houston has not looked good. Their defense has been solid, but Deshaun definitely does not look like the Deshaun of last year. I don't know if it's necessarily because of mobility. I don't know necessarily if it's just because he's now afraid to get hit in a sense. But he's just not looked good. Or even defenses. I don't know if defenses have figured out his game, but they are looking, and I'd hate to say it, and I like Bill O'Brien, but I think Bill O'Brien's going to lose his job at the end of this year.
I could see it too. I mean, he's been. The Deshaun Watson pick definitely saved his butt last year. But okay, so then in that you gave me your top 5. Now where do you put the Giants in that top 10?
I would say top 10. I would think that the Giants
6, 7, or 8.
Yeah, I would say 6, 7, or 8. I mean, they're not as bad. They're definitely not as bad as Buffalo. They're definitely not as bad as Arizona or Oakland. You'll see the Giants probably win about 6 games this year.
Okay.
But they're not. Go ahead.
So then what I'm segueing into is here's why I support the Saquon Barkley pick. You just put those top 5 teams in the draft order. Not one of them is going to take a quarterback. The Giants are going to have complete access to the quarterback they want.
I don't know. With John Gruden running the ship in Oakland, I you never know, man. He could just be like, all right, I'm done with this bullshit ass brother of David Carr. He'll probably be like, knowing John Gruden, he'll be like, hey, is your brother still available to play? Let me play him, man. That boy got a cannon of an arm. So I don't necessarily I don't know. It's tough, but yeah, I'm not
Well,
saying I don't.
if they don't keep Derek, then his reasoning behind the whole Khalil Mack thing is a complete lie, and he's going to get fired immediately. So
I don't.
if they don't pay Derek and don't pay Khalil, then there's an issue there, and someone's getting fired immediately. But regardless, my point is, it's more than likely that the Giants will be able to get their fucking quarterback with no contest. They won't have to trade up. They won't have to trade down. They won't have to do anything. The worst teams in the NFL and the ones that could potentially end up being the worst teams all have their quarterbacks. The Browns have their quarterbacks. The Jets, those are two teams we didn't even name that aren't going to consider. The Ravens would have been a team I would have considered taking a quarterback. They got Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
The two teams that I could see going for a quarterback this year are the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I don't see New Orleans drafting a quarterback because I believe in the Teddy Bridgewater pickup.
Yeah,
exactly. I loved that trade. I mean, you put him in a Sean Payton offense with Kamara and Ingram and Michael Thomas and Cam Meredith. That's a young offense once Drew Brees is replaced. That offense becomes exceedingly young. Outside of Mark Ingram, because he's a little bit older, I think he's like 27. But you still got 3-4 years out of him. With Kamara, who's 20-something years old. I mean, so then you don't even think about a quarterback. And then outside of that, you got the Chargers. But the Chargers are a lock for like 9-7 every year. All right? They're going to be 9-7. That's no question. So those are the only three teams that I could see potentially looking at a first-round quarterback. And the Giants aren't going to be better than any of those teams. And with that goes back to Tampa and segues us into Fitzmagic. So I'll let you take away from Fitzmagic there, Max.
Well, I tell you what, I am surprised. There is some Fitz magic down here in Tampa where I am currently at, and here's a guy. All right, and this is a guy who I've watched videos on, and he has started at least one game, I think, every year since I think it was 2008, 2009, in that area, somewhere around there. He started at least one game. Fitz magic is, I don't know how to describe it, because Fitzpatrick is a good quarterback in the sense of he will win you games. He is not afraid to sling the ball, but he is the most frustrating quarterback, I believe. But this year, man, 800. He's leading the league in passing yards. He's second in the league with 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. Mike Evans looks rejuvenated. OJ Howard's getting into the game. If somehow Tampa could find itself a running back, because I'm not high on any of their running backs that they got down there.
Well, can we talk about how they haven't committed to their second round pick, Ronald Jones?
I know I think he was hurt during the preseason, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
so I don't.
No, Dirk Cutter tore him apart the entire preseason, talking about how terrible he is, but he knows the playbook, but he's been terrible, and he's been a healthy scratch the last 2 weeks. They're not even putting him in the game.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be one of those things. Tampa has been notorious for overdrafting. I mean, you look at the Roberto Aguayo trade up, which at the time when they were looking to solve their kicking issues, when they felt like just the kicker was part of their issues, it wasn't. You're trading for the best college kicker, but kickers are so. It is a stressful job. We saw what happened in Cleveland with Zane Gonzalez.
In Minnesota, too.
We saw in Minnesota with Daniel Carlson, where they cut Kai Forbath. Hell, we even saw it with Dallas, who cut Dan Bailey, being the most accurate kicker in the entire NFL. And it's one of those things where, it's tough to say in terms of the job security. So, but Tampa, back to the point of Tampa drafting, they've had issues drafting. They've gotten some picks correct. They've got a lot of picks incorrect. I mean, a lot of picks incorrect. I don't know. I'd have to watch Ronald play a little bit more, or even watch some tape, figure out what's going on there. I know they've got, I believe, let me pull up the stats here for Tampa, but I believe their top running back is undrafted, if I'm not mistaken.
Price.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Fitz.
What do you think has led to his career resurgence? Do you think it's Dirk Cutter? Do you think it's just the offensive play calling? Do you think it's the fact that he's just like, fuck it, I'll give the ball to Mike Evans because I know Mike Evans can go downfield? Like, what is it?
Well, first of all, what I'll say is he's not giving the ball to Mike Evans. Mike Evans actually is probably the least targeted player on that offense right now. It's more Chris Godwin, Deshaun Jackson, and O.J. Howard, man. I think Mike Evans has done slim to nothing until last week.
Well, he's looking at the stats, and I got the stats pulled up here. Mike Evans actually does have the most targets on the team at 19. He's leading the team in 17 receptions. Second in the team with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Mike Evans is tied with Chris Godwin with 2 touchdowns. But I think what's helping, too, is the fact that you've got a healthy Mike Evans, and if Deshaun Jackson can stay healthy, and, you know, I'm a Redskins fan, I had no shame in that. When Deshaun Jackson is healthy, he's probably the most consistent and reliable deep threat that's out there. And he is scary good. He has currently 9 receptions on 9 targets, 275 yards, leading the team in yards for an average of 30.6 and 3 touchdowns. And of course, he had that magnificent 75-yard bomb that was just on the money. But of course, Deshaun plays good against his old teams. So I'm not looking forward to that matchup on November 11th.
Okay, well, here's what I'll say about that. First of all, what I'm going to say is I don't believe in Dirk Cutter. Dirk is a John Gruden. Same system. They don't believe in like the same type of normalities of what everyone else do. They don't adapt to the game in terms of scouting, drafting, stats, technology, etc., etc. That, you know, they rely on the old school thinking and scouting mentality. I think it's a dying breed in the NFL. I don't like what Dirk has done with the team the last 2 years. Like the level of poor coaching that team has gone through is just terrible. I mean, that defense should be playing with the talent they have. They should be playing at a top 10 level at least.
Well, they've been, at least this year, and I can't discredit you, and you're correct. The last couple of years have been terrible, but this year they've been without Brent Grimes to be their top cornerback. They've been out with their top draft pick Vita Vea, so they've been hurt on that defense. But when you've got Levante David, you've got Quan Alexander, you've got Jason Pierre-Paul, and of course you're missing the biggest cog of all, the most important, Gerald McCoy. When you've got those pieces there, that should be a top 10 defense. And the last couple weeks, their play calling, because I know that they've switched play callers and their offensive coordinator is now doing the play calling, which he is, if he continues the way he's doing, again, I think if Tampa Bay wins this game this week, Jameis does not get that team back. I think this is Fitzpatrick's team until if they finish, let's say they are at like 5-3, they've lost 3 straight or something, or they've gone 1-4, 2 whatever the case may be. If they are on a cold streak, then I think Jameis gets the team back, and Fitzpatrick's just not playing well. But they have been very good. They have been first half warriors in terms of they've just been lighting up points in the first half, and then the second half they go way too conservative, and they're starting to get teams that, you know, New Orleans, you know, I think they were just too far back to get up close, but they almost made a comeback. And Philadelphia almost made a comeback too. So,
well, here's what I will tell you, and this goes back you asking about whether or not the whole Fitz magic thing is real and why his recent insurgence or resurgence. Fitzpatrick's been doing this his entire career. Okay.
yep.
I have friends that were Buffalo Bills fans. I have one particular friend. Um, his name is Michael, and Michael is obsessed, and he is completely driven mad by the whole Fitzpatrick thing. He is convinced that Fitzpatrick, with his Harvard degree, has the game figured out down to a mathematical science. And he has gotten it figured out down to the team he signs with, to the time he needs to play, etc. Like almost like those FanDuel people out there that know how to put in the perfect freaking lineup to win $1 million and crack it. He's convinced that Fitzpatrick knows what team is his best opportunity, and he knows how to sign on a team and immediately, make it good. I mean, he took Buffalo when he first signed with them 6-0. Buffalo was 6-0 at one point
Yep.
in like 2013 or 2012 or whatever it was, and what's his face kicked that ridiculously long field goal that I'll never forget. So it was against the freaking the Raiders. I remember that game like the back of my hand. It was the game the Bills won to go 6-0. Sebastian Janikowski kicked the first ever 65-yard field goal. I got 6 points on my fantasy team. It was great. but
sure they take that back right now.
Yeah, and I think Seabass got like 22 points that game, and I'll never forget it. I was sitting in a Hooters in Arkansas watching that game and wondering how the heck and why the Buffalo Bills were 6-0, and that's when Fitzmagic first started and first took off, and that's where it all began. And then he left, and then where did he go next? What the Tennessee Titans? I don't think he ever really did anything on Tennessee. I think he did maybe briefly. Did enough to go to what, the Houston Texans?
Texans.
Yeah, and then Jets, he did some phenomenal stuff there. Then he took to the Jets damn near to the playoffs.
Yep.
And he's done this time and time again where he just comes onto a team, calculates his risk / reward. He got into a team that, luckily enough, suspended, the starting quarterback got suspended. A quarterback that's been playing kind of half-ass his entire career, never fully lived up to his potential.
But man, you gotta eat them W's though, man. You just got hum them W's.
Yeah, and steal them crabs, right?
Yeah.
But that's it's kind of bad because Fitz is doing well and he will continue to do well. The amount of success that he's going to have is probably not going to hold as well as he's playing currently. I think he still could win games, but here's the way I'm looking at it is he's going to win next week against Pittsburgh. All right. John, you've heard it here first. Max is going to lose in this fantasy matchup that I have against him because I got Fitz playing against him. Thanks for letting me get him, guys. So you're going to go down to Fitzmagic. And if I do win, I may strongly consider changing my team name from Loquan Dap so hard to Fitzmagic. But that's besides the point. But he is going to beat Pittsburgh because two things. Fitz does this, and he does it time and time again. I give him a 6-game gap. I give him 6 games, okay, before it starts to decline. Pittsburgh will lose. Mike Tomlin will lose his job this year. He's already lost the locker room the last 2 seasons. He's lost Le'Veon Bell. Antonio Brown is losing his mind. Big Ben's been a turd nugget the last couple of years, speaking out. Yeah, and he's playing the retire card. He's getting salty when the team drafts a quarterback. That team is in complete disarray, and losing to Tampa is going to set them over the edge. And then the game that's going to be a deciding factor is when Jameis's suspension is up week 4 against the Chicago Bears. And boy, am I looking forward to it, because they have to make 2 decisions. They have to commit to Fitz, bench Jameis, start that media circus. And then Fitz is going to have to start. He is going to start against the Chicago Bears front 7. And it's either going to get really ugly from there, or it's going to get really good. And if it gets really good, the Bucs are going to be like, all right, we can ride Fitz for another year or 2 if we have to. Jameis is on a contract year. They can let him go. I could see him going to a team like San Diego. I could see him going to a team like, hell, I don't know, Detroit. I could see him going to a team like, God, help me out here, guys. Give me some teams.
Well, we can talk about next season when we get there. We'll talk about that more. We got to see how this plays out. Another person I want to talk about who's made leaps and strides this year, playing in a system for the second year. Why I'm a hard believer in having quarterbacks, especially rookie quarterbacks, first round picks, sit for a year. Pat Mahomes, the Mahomie, lights up Pittsburgh last week for 6 touchdowns. He has 10 touchdowns on the year in 2 games, 0 interceptions, and that man is just playing like a grown-ass professional quarterback. What do you make of it? Is it the Alex Smith factor, the fact that he learned under Alex Smith? Is it the Andy Reid factor? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, it's pretty crazy because, I mean, it's like you see a lot of these young quarterbacks come into the league, and some of them are like, okay, you got to start right away. And some of them, like you have Patrick Mahomes, he only sat under Alex Smith for, a year? And look what's come of it. I mean, this guy's just come out of the gate this season like a man possessed. And, I mean, it's like we've talked about before. I mean, it's a pretty young season. But already, do you put him up there with, the MVP talk? I mean, this guy is just going out there and just flinging the ball like he's been doing it for a few seasons. And, I mean, you take down a team like Pittsburgh, and they're just a whole different team with him under center than they are with Alex Smith. I mean, it's insane when you think about it. But, I mean, I wonder going forward, I mean, some of these guys, do you let these quarterbacks sit under their system for a year at least, or do you start them right away? I mean, does it depend on the quarterback itself, or how do you go about that?
I mean, I'd put it on the quarterback itself. I mean, you could sit a quarterback for 4 years and get Aaron Rodgers, or you can start Aaron Rodgers week 1 and still get Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's really going to come down to the player itself and how much work they put into it. They can sit all they want, man, but you can still go home at the end of the night after a bad game and study the hell out of the game. I mean, I support the whole sitting a year thing. Like, I think it's good, but at the same time, if you're a great quarterback, you're gonna play great eventually. I mean, Peyton Manning had one of the worst rookie years of any rookie quarterback out there.
And obviously, look how that turned out.
Exactly. I mean, it happens.
Troy Aikman as well. I mean, Troy Aikman had a god awful rookie year. He finished 1-15. I mean, just terrible, and then he leads Dallas to 3 Super Bowl wins in 4 years. So
right, it's really contingent on the rookie. But what I will say about Pat Mahomes is, I wanted him on my football team last year. He was my number 1 quarterback target, and Dak the year prior. I believe in Mahomes. Do I believe Mahomes will keep up this
torrid, insane pace? Yeah.
No, not at all. I mean,
no. He's got to come down to earth sometime. But
yeah, he will. And I will tell you, the weak link in their offense is their receivers. Yes, Tyreek Hill is a monster. Do not get me wrong for a second. But you give every team in the NFL 4 weeks to study those receivers and the tape they've put up, you're going to game plan against them. They are not big bodied receivers. They cannot beat press coverage. They rely on their speed. They rely on Mahomes getting them the ball and beating the coverage.
I think their biggest wide receiver, outside of obviously Travis Kelce, is Chris Conley, and he's 6'3", but only 205 pounds. So I wouldn't expect him to really go over the middle too much.
Right.
You've got Sammy Watkins, who is just your deep threat, 6'1", 211. And of course, you got Tyreek Hill being, was it like 5'10", 5'11",
Yeah.
190 pounds. Those guys aren't going to go down the middle for you. Those guys are going to go deep shots. They're going to be quick.
Now, a lot of their points have been put up over the last course of the last 2 weeks is due solely to Tyreek's ability to make plays after the catch. And that's only going to last so long. There's going to be teams out there that can tackle better than Pittsburgh and whoever they played week 1. I can't remember.
Now, it's going to be interesting because the staple for Kansas City's teams the last couple years have been their veteran defense. Eric Berry, Derek Johnson, Tom Bahali, those guys right there leading the defense. You're starting to see, though, now they've got the offense, but their defense is just, through 2 games, they've only had 2 sacks, which that's fine, whatever. But I haven't seen too much pressure. They got through Pittsburgh fine, but I believe this. I'm not a big Pittsburgh. To me, is in a regression year. They're gonna finish. Last year was their year. Last year, if they wanted to go to another Super Bowl and potentially win another Super Bowl, that was the year to do it. Same thing with the Saints. I fully believe that both Pittsburgh and New Orleans had to have won their games to get to the Super Bowl, to play each other, because I don't think New Orleans, Drew Brees, his arm's a little bit slower this year. Their defense has taken a weird turn. I don't know what's up with them. After having a top 5 defense last year, their defense has just not looked the same. And same thing with Pittsburgh. I mean, James Conner's playing out of his mind. The guy is playing great, play in place of Le'Veon, but their offense hasn't really done anything. You've seen, that kind of segues into our next option here, or next topic here is there trouble in Pittsburgh? I mean, you have Le'Veon Bell sitting out, fine, whatever. You and I have had this conversation, Bronson, where we've said, you've said I'm not paying the guy, and I've said the guy deserves the money. Now,
correction. I said he should have taken the original contract.
Right.
And now he looks like a dumbass.
Well, he's going to get paid either way. I
don't think he is.
But there's so much smoke right now for him going to Indianapolis, and Indianapolis is going to have damn near $90 million in cap room next year, that if Indianapolis feels like they just need to add that complimentary piece to Andrew Luck, which they've tried to do in the past with Trent Richardson, which we're not even going to talk about that because that's another day, another podcast for another time. But if they feel like Andrew Luck, if they're only a running back away, and their running backs haven't done too much this year that maybe thought differently.
I genuinely believe they need to make a strong push for a true number 1 receiver and make T.Y. Hilton a number 2.
Yeah, I think they need a big bodied. I think they need a big bodied receiver that'll go down the middle, and then that way you can just have Ty, take the top off the defenses, take the safeties deep, so that way you've got your guy going 1-on-1. But I think Le'Veon helps with that. I think obviously you got a guy who's a 1,000-yard rusher when he's healthy. You've got a guy who's been second on that team in receptions with over 85, 90 receptions the last couple years. But besides that point, like you were saying before, Mike Tomlin feels like he's lost that team. You've got Antonio Brown mouthing off, and that's not the first time he's done it on social media, where he's done something stupid on social media. But you have him mouthing off saying "trade me," and even though Drew Rosen said there was no trade, and the Pittsburgh Steelers said, "Oh, there's not going to be a trade," you gotta wonder: is Antonio Brown happy? Does he feel like he's wasting his time? I mean, it's trouble in Pittsburgh, I feel like.
No, what it is right now, and what I will stick by till the day I die is everyone's kind of like, yes, the offensive lineman came out and bashed um, Le'Veon hardcore, and I agree with everything they had to say, 100%. I'm gonna stay with that. Like you said, one thing, stick to it, man. Just keep your word. Like your word is the only thing you have in this world, and just it's dishonest if you just say one thing and then you break it. I don't care how bad your feelings are hurt. Show up to practice when you say you're going to show up to practice. If you don't want to show up to practice, then don't say you're going to show up to practice on a certain date. Secondly, the weapons of the team, if you will, the Juju, Washington, Antonio, especially Antonio, Big Ben, they're kind of looking at Le'Veon and being like, yeah, I kind of agree with Le'Veon right now. And with that causes, like, you got the locker room stuff, you got the chaos there, and that breeds negativity. All right, that already, like, you walk into the fucking locker room, you look at Le'Veon's locker, that's the first thing you're thinking of. You walk in, you see this, you're pissed off. Like, that's like if Tom Brady, or any of the greatest running backs in the NFL in their given generation. It's like if Emmitt Smith didn't show up to, like, the Super Bowl game, for the Dallas Cowboys. Like, what does every player in that locker room think and feel when they look at that locker? You're mad. You're angry. And Antonio Brown is probably the biggest star on that offense. And he's like, fuck. Like, I kind of agree with him. Like, how am I supposed to do what I want to do without that guy? And that's probably part of Antonio's frustration. He's like, yeah, I can't do this without Big Ben. Like, that's insulting to him. But at the same time, he knows for him to be successful in the NFL, he needs Le'Veon lining up in the slot. If Le'Veon's in the slot and then Antonio's to his left, Antonio knows I'm going to make some stuff happen because I got two linebackers worried about him. I got a safety looking at him in the middle of the field. I got this one dude on the outside of the field. Let's see what I can make happen. And so every day, you take that away from him. That's like taking a piece of candy from an infant, man. They get mad once they had a taste. And I'm not trying to allude to Antonio Brown being an infant, but I am going to say that you're acting like a child when you throw temper tantrums on the sideline 2 seasons in a row and you have a live Facebook video of the locker room. Right. Like, you're being careless. You've been in the NFL for almost a decade. You know better at this point.
Right.
You're an all-pro,
John, what are you thinking when you see Pittsburgh? I know with you being a Ravens fan, you're close with that division. What's your personal thoughts?
Well, especially me being a Ravens fan, and of course in our fantasy league as well. I mean, Antonio has been my boy the last handful of years, but I mean, here's a guy who's been the top receiver the last few years. Obviously, he's a leader for the Steelers, a leader in that locker room. And I mean, it seems like it's just been such a huge distraction this season so far with not just with him, but I mean, obviously the whole Le'Veon Bell thing. I mean, after week 1 with the tie with the Browns, I mean, you have your head coach saying, okay, well, we need to stop talking about Le'Veon Bell. And then week 2, you have Antonio Brown mouthing off on the sideline and then coming out with that tweet saying, trade me. I mean, it just seems like there's so much going on. And then like what we were talking about before with every season in the last couple of years with Big Ben flirting with retirement. I mean, it's like, is it time for an actual rebuild in Pittsburgh? I mean, do you get rid of Tomlin? Do you? I know they just drafted a quarterback this season in Pittsburgh. I mean, what do you do? I mean, it just seems like there's so much going on with such a big franchise. I mean, this is one of the biggest franchises in football. I mean, something's got to give. I mean, it's still early in the season and anything can happen. And it's it's just crazy when you think about it. I mean, this is a team where coming into this year, I've seen quite a few picks on ESPN, NFL Network. I mean, where they're picking the Steelers to go to the Super Bowl. It just seems like it's so far fetched where they stand at this point. I mean, anything can happen. It's only week 3. But, I mean, where do you go from here? I mean, it seems like there's just so many question marks with this team right now.
Well,
Right.
I will. Max, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
We can talk about Le'Veon. We can talk about the entire offense. But in reality, the biggest problem on that defense right now, on that team right now, is the defense. That defense is not making plays.
Mm-hmm.
They are not making.
Pittsburgh's, yeah.
Their defense played so much better than what it's currently playing. They can't tackle. They can't get a sack, it seems. They can't get a pick, that's concerning in itself. I mean, we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like my man Kyle Brandt, who I debated the Buffalo Bills draft pick with in Dallas. Thank you, Kyle. We had fun together in person. But like he said, you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're one of the longest storied franchises for great defenses. Why are they not playing defense now? They played defense all those years with James Harrison and Troy Polamalu and all those linebackers that they had. And that in itself is the concerning thing. Like, I understand the Ryan Shazier stuff. Like, you lost him. He was a stud on your defense, but you still have a lot of pieces there. And they're not playing defense. They're not playing defense at all. Like, it's like the defense has given up. You got Cameron Hayward over there just, like, slacking. You got people just slacking over there. And it's like, it's depressing to see. It's like everyone's given up. It's like it's either a belief in the coach or just like a belief in themselves. And I also will say this, so I can get this on record, is the biggest mistake the Steelers made was firing and letting go of Todd Haley. He easily could have been a solid replacement option. I love him as an offensive coordinator. I can't say that enough. And
I definitely agree, yeah.
And what he did with Big Ben and Antonio last year and the year prior could also be stemming from the problems that they're currently having on offense because they're not jiving with the play calling.
No, and absolutely not.
Yeah, and that's my biggest concern.
All right. We are going to, because we're running out a little bit of time here, because we have been having a lot of fun. And unfortunately, we had a lot of technical issues on somebody's end. I'm not going to mention who, but we finally got everything figured out.
Max, you don't have to talk about yourself, all right? We get it. You can't play a song track. We get it.
Yeah, you can go die in a fire. All right, so basically, we are going to end this with some picks, some predictions for this upcoming week. We're going to start tracking our picks, see who picks well. We'll do a quick rundown of the games. We'll talk about a little bit about the matchups, so on and so forth. So, first game that we got on the docket is a do or die game, kind of for both teams. The New Orleans Saints versus the Atlanta Falcons. John, who do you have?
This has been interesting between these two teams. Both teams haven't looked too great this season, but I have to go with the Falcons.
Okay. Any reason particularly for the Falcons?
They're at home. They have a brand new stadium that they're in. I feel like this is the week where they finally start to find their stride.
All right. Bronson?
All right, here we go. Going big and going bold. New Orleans Saints win. This is the downfall of the Matt Ryan era in Atlanta. They've lost huge pieces on defense. They lost one of the best guards in the NFL this year. They've lost 4 players last week to IR. They're not getting Calvin Ridley involved enough. I saw a little bit from him last week. That was great, but Julio is still not getting the ball enough. He's not getting it where it matters, and that's in the end zone. New Orleans Saints win. Defense plays better this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Bronson here. Just looking at the injuries piling up for Atlanta, no Devontae Freeman, no Andy Levitre, who's one of their stalwart offensive guards. That Deion Jones. I mean it's bad time. Keanu Neal.
You're talking about 2 Pro Bowlers right there off the team.
Right. So I'm gonna have to go with the New Orleans Saints. Bounce back week for New Orleans. And yeah, I see Atlanta struggling this year. They're gonna win games. I'm gonna say they're probably gonna finish maybe 7-9, but they're just not. And I wouldn't say they're a bad football team. They're a hurt football team.
I get this on record. Julio Jones gets traded before the deadline to the San Francisco 49ers. Continue.
Wow. Speaking of those San Francisco 49ers, they play against the guy we talked about in Pat Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs. Bronson, who do you got?
All right, this is a tough one. You said who's at home?
Kansas City is at home.
Yeah.
Kansas City wins by 3. Low-scoring game, though. I can see the San Francisco 49ers keeping it low-scoring. The high-scoring games for Kansas City is going to subside a little bit. 24-17, I think, is like the max.
I'm going to go with Kansas City. I think their offense is just clicking. San Francisco's offense hasn't found its stride just yet. Jimmy G needs to stop banging that porn star and start hitting that playbook. I love Jimmy G. I think he's going to be fantastic, and I think he's the right call in San Francisco. But yeah, I'm going to have to go Kansas City. I'm a homie. What can I say? John, who you got?
I do feel like Jimmy G will come around at some point this season. Very talented quarterback, but I mean, you got to go with the hot hand. I mean, I'm right there with you. Mahomie is the man. I got to go with Kansas City.
All right, next game, the Oakland Raiders are playing in Miami against the Miami Dolphins. Miami has looked fantastic at times this year.
On defense, not on offense.
Not on offense, but Minka Fitzpatrick is that dude on that defense. I mean, that was a steal of a pick for them. Obviously, teams that didn't pick him had to go with different needs for different reasons, but Minka Fitzpatrick might be the most versatile defensive back in the league, and he is going to wreak havoc against that Oakland offense, which, if you look at the stats the last couple of weeks, they are not a good coach team. We can make fun of John Gruden all he wants, but this is a team that has had leads in both games and has given up, I think, 43 points in the second half collectively against the other teams. I'm sticking with Miami. I think Oakland is going to have a very tough year in Gruden's return back. Bronson, who you got?
I'm going to stick with Miami because I think the John Gruden train is just going to blow up in a blaze of glory. And Max, I did pick Miami's defense to murder you this week in fantasy.
And John, who you got, my friend?
It's crazy. We haven't talked about the Dolphins at all this whole podcast. And, I mean, they are 2-0, and they are at home. And I'm right there with you guys. I mean, the whole Gruden in Oakland, I mean, it's just not working out. I have to go with Miami this game.
Yeah, I think that's one of the no-brainers of this week. I will honestly be surprised this week if you see Oakland pulling out a victory.
Well, I will say this real quick is Miami has played 2 mediocre teams the last 2 weeks, and I would not be surprised if Oakland's offense was able to catch Miami's defense off guard.
That is true. All right, next game on the docket, Buffalo Bills versus the Minnesota Vikings at Minnesota. John, just say it. Just say it.
I'm not even gonna get into depth with this. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, come on, Vikings. Let's do this.
Bronson, I gotta ask.
1,000,000 Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's they've got no offensive line, they've got no wide receivers, their defense just looks terrible this year. I mean, you might see them
and apparently, objectively speaking, an abusive running back. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he might still get suspended. She's supposed to make some type of statement, I think, in the next week or so, stating why she believes that she was robbed by him specifically. So, not good things in Buffalo. Yeah, I'm going with Minnesota. I think Minnesota shuts him out. Josh Allen gets punished again, and I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the kid because he definitely is one of those quarterbacks who deserved a year sitting behind somebody. But when you have Nathan Peterman in 2 games throwing 7 interceptions, no touchdowns, you gotta yank the fucker. So
just set up for failure. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. All right, Indianapolis Colts versus Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz, the man, the myth, the legend, is back this week. He is going to play up against this Indianapolis Colts front. Bronson, is this a test for Philly? Is this a good matchup for them? Who you got?
Indy wins. Carson Wentz gets warmed up. He's going to start really slow, very sluggish. Indy's coming on to all cylinders. They're starting to get locked and loaded with Andrew Luck. I'm loving the offensive line there. The running back position could get a hell of a lot better, but I think Wentz is going to be really sluggish coming back. And they still don't have Alshon yet. The receivers are mediocre without him, so I take Indy.
Yeah, I've got Indianapolis as well this week, only for the simple fact that same thing you said. I think Wentz is going to be slow, even though I love Wentz, and I still got Philly taking the division this year. Dallas doesn't excite me. New York's obviously having their issues, and the Redskins are the Redskins. I've got Indianapolis only for the simple fact too that their Andrew Luck is clicking. And same thing where you're saying Alshon's gone. They had to sign Jordan Matthews because Mike Wallace is gone. Yeah, Indianapolis. John?
Well, I have to agree with you guys. I mean, Indy's been pretty solid this year. The Eagles do get Carson Wentz back this week. Still no Alshon. And let's also remember that it looks like Jay Ajayi might not be good to go this game. So I have to go with Indy.
True that. All right, next game. We got the Green Bay Packers. Those Aaron Rodgers-led Green Bay Packers versus the Washington Redskins in a battle of the 2005 NFL Draft quarterbacks. Remember, back in that draft, Aaron Rodgers was projected to go number 1 overall. Instead, Alex Smith went to San Francisco. Aaron Rodgers went to Green Bay, and the rest is history. I'm going to go with... Even though I'm a Redskins fan, Green Bay. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is unfucking real. I mean, he's probably the best quarterback in the league. He played the last couple weeks on one leg and has just been absolutely lighting up, and it's incredible. I gotta go with Green Bay. Bronson, who you got?
All right, I want to go bold. The Redskins invested their first 2 picks on D-line, interior line for a reason, and it's going to pay off. The Redskins' interior defensive line, which has played surprisingly well, extremely well, if you will, and they're going to play really well against Green Bay's really terrible interior line. The pass rush on the ends for the Redskins will struggle because the Green Bay tackles are very good, but Rodgers is not mobile right now, so if there's a chance to sack him, it's going to be right there in the interior of that line. You got good corners over there in Washington country, and Norman's going to line up against Devontae really, really nicely, and if Rodgers can't get that ball out of his hands fast enough, there's going to be issues. I give the Redskins by 3 points.
And John, who you got?
And I feel like this is going to be a pretty close game, but it's just really hard to bet against Aaron Rodgers and that Packers offense. I mean, as long as Rodgers can stay healthy this year, I mean, I'm sorry, I have to go with the Packers with this game.
Don't forget Rodgers isn't healthy.
Yeah, but I mean,
as long as he's in the game,
as
long
long
as
as
he's in
he
the
has
game, I
both,
cannot
as
bet
long as he has
against him.
one working leg, it's still Aaron fucking Rodgers. Next game on the docket: Cincinnati at Carolina. John, who do you got?
Interesting. Being a fan of an AFC North team. I mean, the Bengals have looked pretty solid this season. They're 2-0. Panthers are at home. This is an interesting game. I'm gonna have to go with the Panthers with this one.
All right, Bronson.
Cincinnati all the way. Panthers are terrible and they're garbage and they have a terrible coach. Move on.
And I'm gonna go with...
did I add that I hate Cam Newton and he needs to get out of the NFL immediately?
I think we've talked about this plenty of times.
Worst arm in the NFL.
We'll talk about that a little bit. Oh no, Nathan Peterman has the worst arm in the NFL.
Okay, well,
second the worst arm. Yeah.
I'm not sure at this point he counts.
Dicks all over the face. This is a tough game. Carolina obviously is going to be playing at home. Are they? Do we know are they actually playing at home, even though the hurricane hit and all that, or are they playing an offsite field?
I think as far as no, they're playing at home. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything different.
Carolina's gonna have some pride after that hurricane devastated the week, but yeah, I think you're gonna see an 8-8 Carolina team. Cincinnati, I mean, fucking AJ Green is just he's top 5, maybe top 3 wide receiver in the league. He's so underappreciated, it's ridiculous. I'm gonna go Cincinnati this week. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a close game. I think maybe 3-point margin victory for Cincinnati, but yeah, it's gonna be a fun one.
It's definitely gonna be low scoring. Yeah,
Bronson,
sure.
Titans, Jaguars at Jacksonville. Who you got?
Jags easy. Mariota's a big question mark still. God knows if he's going to come back. Derrick Henry's underperforming. He should be running well right now. And if they were going to win that game, they need him running well against that interior front seven of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jalen Ramsey's a question mark, but I still think they can win the game with Bouye.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go Jacksonville as well. Tennessee doesn't really have any wide receivers that excite me. Delaney Walker's obviously out. You've got hurt offensive line. Mariota's not playing. Their defense definitely doesn't excite me as well. I'm going to go Jacksonville. John, who do you got?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, they're without a lot of weapons on offense. The Tennessee Titans are no Mariota. Jaguars just came off a huge win against the Patriots, and they're at home. I'm going to have to go with the Jags on this one.
All right. John, you're up next again. Denver Broncos at home, or I'm sorry, not at home, going to visit the Baltimore Ravens, your team. Who do you got? Why?
Yeah. It's hard to bet against my team every week. I mean, just because of pride and all. Luckily, it looks like CJ Mosley is not going to miss any time. He's been limited this week, which is huge on our defense. We are at home. I'm going to have to go with the Ravens over the Broncos.
Bronson?
All right.
You know me.
Say it. Don't hold it back, baby.
I believe that the Baltimore Ravens are one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I strongly stick by that. You won one game against a terrible Buffalo Bills team. I do believe that the Baltimore Ravens will have a top 10 pick come the end of the year, which they will need now that they have their franchise quarterback in Lamar Jackson, and I hope they invest in their offensive line or the running back position. I think Denver Broncos destroy that offensive line, make them regret letting every Pro Bowler leave that they have over the last 3 seasons, and those corners will eat those receivers alive. John Brown is a speed threat. I could see him getting 1 touchdown. Denver wins by 10.
All right, and me personally picking, it's gonna be a close game. Casey Keenum has looked flat the 2 games, but he has led them to 2 comeback victories. However, I'm gonna go with Baltimore for the simple fact that I don't know. It's like 1 week Joe Flacco, he is not elite, and then 1 week he is elite. So I think this is one of those weeks where it's at home. You're going to see him after a terrible performance, after people questioning whether Lamar Jackson should play. I think he goes out there and just starts slinging the ball, so I'm going to go Baltimore. I got the New York Giants versus the Houston Texans at Houston. I am going to go with Houston to get the rebound win. Again, I think you've got Jadeveon Clowney, you've got J.J. Watt, healthy J.J. Watt. They have concerns in the secondary, but with just those two players, they're going to wreak havoc against that terrible, awful, no good New York Giants offensive line. John, who do you got?
This is a game where one of these teams is going to finally get that win on this season. Houston's at home. I don't know. This is really a toss-up for me, but I'm going to have to go with Houston at home.
All right, and Bronson, who you got?
I want to take Houston at home, but like you said, the Houston Texans have a terrible secondary, and the best passing pattern that Odell Beckham runs is the slant route. Giants win with the slant route, with Saquon Barkley, and they do it on quick passes from the shotgun to keep that fucking pass rush at heel.
All right. Next game we got up, the LA Chargers, which is still, I hate saying that. I wish they would go back to San Diego. Fuck this bullshit that they got going on. Going up against the LA Rams, which sounds more natural. I'm up. I'm going to go with, I'm going to say, I'm going to say the Rams. I think that defense is just lights out. Guerrilla Radio. Shout out to Rage Against the Machine right there. I think that defense is just, you're seeing the dividends that they're paying off. What's even scarier about that team is that they were probably in second place in terms of trading for Khalil Mack. Just to have him for 1 year to then trade him next year. But could you have imagined Khalil Mack on that team with Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh, Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, and all their other pieces? Even without that, that's
well,
still
we're not
going to
imagine Max move on.
I'm going to
go. Scary to think about, though.
I'm going to go LA Rams. Bronson, who do you got?
Can I answer last? John, you go.
John, you go.
Double home game. Definitely have to go with the Rams, though.
Double home game. I know. Can the Chargers get out of their fucking piece of shit 25,000? Nobody goes to even that. I'm sorry. At least when you were in San Diego, you had fans going to the game. You don't even have fans going to a 25,000 foot fan field fucking bullshit.
Everyone's going to be dressed in Rams uniforms.
Exactly.
Hey, you know what? Think about the fans, though. Man, those tickets are cheap, and they're probably stoked.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
What a day to be
it's expensive to live in California, especially Los Angeles.
Yeah, so, those tickets right now, they're going for, I'm looking on ESPN right now, as low as $30.
Exactly.
Shit. Definitely time to be an LA fan.
Let's do it, man. Let's go party with the LA Rams, baby.
Let's go.
All right. So, see, the reason why I went last is because I got a whole piece, as I always do, is I love Phillip Rivers. I think he's one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks in the entire NFL. I think he is a mastermind of picking apart defenses that he goes against. Phillip Rivers is probably the best quarterback to go up against that LA Rams secondary. It is going to be a surprisingly close game. I do think the Rams will win, though, because the Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib corner tandem is unreal. I do think, though, Phillip Rivers is going to surprise us, and he's going to give us hope as potential Chargers fans. Rams win by 6.
All right, I'm going to go Rams.
I can do it.
Rams. So, next game got going up. Chicago at Arizona. Bronson, you're up first. Are you picking?
Bastard. Why did I go first?
Because it's your turn, bitch. Go first.
Okay. All right. Well, as always, I got a whole piece on the matter. The first part of my piece is I take Chicago Bears. The front seven is going to destroy them. They've already destroyed 2 other fucking teams in their offensive lines. The Arizona Cardinals have played like absolute garbage. But here's the thing that I love to think about and makes me drool and get real giddy and makes me like just want to like do some skipping is they have to come to the decision whether or not they want to start their rookie quarterback against the Chicago Bears front seven, and that terrifies them, and that forces them to have to play Bradford. But I could also see this game coming down to one simple fact, and it's the running back position. Whichever running back on the opposite team does better is going to be the winning team. And this is the type of game that the Chicago Bears will lose, because they will sleep on David Johnson, and they will think they can manhandle him. And I think our linebackers, especially Trevathan and especially our rookie Roquan Smith, are going to have some serious issues trying to get to him. And with all the different things that he can do inside the tackles, I would not be surprised if this is the game that David Johnson rushes for 100 yards and this game is low scoring. I could see the Arizona defense stepping up. I could see this literally being a 10-7 game. And I give it to the Bears with Cody Parkey kicking the game-winning field goal.
I've got Chicago as well. If I'm Arizona, I don't start Sam Rosen due to his injury history. I don't start him this week against that Bears front seven. Khalil Mack, and I've heard scouts and I've heard other people talk about it. Khalil Mack is doing things right now that are unheard of, and he is not even in technical football shape. He missed all of preseason. He has and being in shape and being in football shape are two completely different things. This man, though, still being in shape, has dominated offensive lines, and I think you're going to see that again this week. I go Chicago. John?
This is, to me, almost a no-brainer. I mean, Chicago's defense has been very dominant so far. The interesting thing with this game is that the Cardinals are at home. If the Chicago defense does hold bar and go crazy, I mean, how long do you go until the fans are crying for Josh Rosen to play? I mean, I definitely go with the Bears this game, but don't be surprised if at least late in the game they throw Rosen in the game.
If they do, it's going to be a big mistake.
Yeah, I could. Yeah,
it's gonna be something that keeps him up at night the rest of his career.
Mm-hmm,
all right,
yeah.
next game we got up on the docket. We've got Dallas at Seattle. John, who do you got?
Gonna have to go with the Cowboys this game. It's hard to think that the Seahawks will start the season at 0-3. They haven't been terrible this year, and they are at home, but I'm gonna have to go with the Cowboys this game.
See, I'm gonna have to disagree. I'm gonna go with Seattle this week. Even though Seattle hasn't looked, they have to be completely different, not only on defense because they've gotten rid of basically everybody and their mother on defense, but also on offense. I mean, they don't have the rushing attack anymore, though. They're relying on Russell Wilson. However, to that caveat, the Dallas Cowboys have just been hurt. They haven't looked good.
They've been as terrible.
They have no wide receivers. Their defense looks slow and doesn't look good at all. Ezekiel's not getting any yards. Dak's looking flat when he throws his balls. I'm gonna say this is a rebound game for Seattle. I think they get their first win, and I think Dallas they are gonna have to figure something out. Bronson?
All right, I will throw this little fun statistic out here. The Dallas Cowboys lead the NFL in sacks this year, which is insane to imagine. They lead the sacks They lead in sacks in the entire NFL with 12. Russell Wilson has been sacked 12 times this year. Seattle Seahawks, they're the 12th man. Seahawks win. Let's go.
All right. I like it. All right, next game. We got New England up against Detroit. Detroit Rock City. This is a no-brainer to me. Josh Gordon's going to play some snaps. I think he's going to be on snap count, an actual true snap count, not the one that Cleveland said they were going to put him on and then played him for the majority of the game. This is potentially a good thing for New England. This is potentially their Randy Moss. If they can keep Josh Gordon sober, they can keep Josh Gordon focused and healthy, and that's a big if. But if they can do that, this could be one of the biggest steals that this team has ever done. I think it continues the New England hype train. I got New England winning this. Bronson?
All right. It's not a question of if, Max. Bill Belichick will keep that man sober. When he talks to people in the locker room, it's like watching an anime cartoon show when a demon talks to everyone and possesses everything around him and just That exactly is what's going to happen to Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon's going to fall in line with how everyone else is because Bill Belichick wouldn't take a chance on someone if he doesn't think he can completely control them and get them to conform to his system. Josh Gordon is going to be amazing this year. It's probably going to take a few weeks. He's not going to be on a snap count because they are completely desperate. They're going to put him out there. They're going to line him out wide. They just may tell him to run straight for freaking 25 snaps. But he is going to play. But I will tell you this, that the Patriots will win, but Matt Patricia is not going to go down without a fight. He is going to put that game within 3 because he knows exactly what pisses off Tom Brady, and he's been coaching up against him and practicing up against him and analyzing every single one of his weaknesses his entire career. He's the only one who probably knows how to get under Tom Brady's skin better than anyone in the NFL. Patriots win by 3.
All right, John.
I have to agree with Bronson there. I feel like it's going to be very close, especially with Matt Patricia, knowing what can get it potentially under Tom Brady's skin in that offense. But this is really make or break for Josh Gordon. I mean, it's put up or shut up. I mean, you have arguably the best quarterback in the history of the game. And if you can't put up, then, I mean, what else can I say? I definitely have the Patriots winning this game. It's going to be close. I could see them winning by 3 or 6. But, I mean, you obviously have to go with the Patriots in this game, in my opinion.
Absolutely. All right, that's a clean sweep for us on that one. In the final game, the Monday night game, got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to lead this off. Or, no, I'm actually going to have Bronson. Bronson, I'm sorry, it's your turn. Bronson, you lead it off.
All right. Fitzmagic is real for this week at least. He is going to put up at least 35 points again this week. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to continue their train. There has been no word on Le'Veon. Antonio Brown has not rectified his ways. This team is just trending downwards. The defense is doing nothing to help this team. It is expected to be on the offense completely. Expect Juju to have a big game. Expect to see something out of rookie Washington over there that I really liked. That team is so good at drafting receivers. So
they really are.
They are the best team in the NFL at drafting wide receivers. So if you're worried about Antonio Brown and you think he's causing problems and you think Le'Veon's causing you problems, you got a good running back playing well and you draft receivers well. Let both of them go. Get rid of the problem. Mike Tomlin, regain your locker room, lose this game, make changes before the deadline is up. Tampa wins by 12.
All right, John, who do you got?
And kind of like what I was talking about before, it's kind of hard to see, like I was saying, it was kind of hard to see the Seahawks starting off the season at 0-3. It's kind of hard to see the Steelers start off at 0-2-1. I mean, but this is a team that's had a lot of distractions so far this season. The Buccaneers are playing great so far. You have Fitzmagic down there. I mean, he's a man possessed. I mean, this guy's just been going crazy this season so far. It's kind of hard to bet against that so far. So I'm going to have to go with the Buccaneers of this game.
Yep, and I agree with both of you. I think there's still more Fitzmagic to be played. This is the game that Jameis is supposed to be unsuspended from afterwards. On Tuesday, he's supposed to come back to One Buck Palace, where he will not have the starting job. He will be the backup until Fitzmagic runs out. But, I mean, like I said earlier, Fitzmagic leads the league in yards thrown this year. Has 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, has just rejuvenated this Buccaneers offense that's just so loaded. And everybody's just been waiting for even Jameis to pull up. I've got Tampa Bay winning by 10. Steelers, their defense has not looked too solid throughout the year. So, all right, that's about does it.
I got one question for you, Max.
All right, one more.
Just hypothetical here.
Uh-huh.
If one coach could honestly commit to Fitzpatrick, what happens?
Well, the issue with Fitzpatrick, though, is that... Are you talking about Tampa or just any team in the NFL?
Just any team.
The issue with Fitzpatrick is that he's 36 years old. I know the rules are starting to lean towards, having quarterbacks play until they're 50 because, you can't even tackle a quarterback without getting a penalty. One 1 second here. I'm just trying to save
But
the file here.
here's my question: if he stayed on that contract that the Buffalo Bills signed him to, that 6-year, $70 million contract, whatever it was, back in whenever he signed it, and he would have played on last year's Buffalo Bills team.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take that Buffalo Bills team further than
what Tyrod did?
Yeah.
It just depends on how they did the previous years. I mean, if he would have done what he would have done this year with Buffalo, which he didn't even really play that bad for Buffalo, even after signing the contract. He was average, but still played pretty well to where he should have probably stayed. It's just a scheme fit. But if they could have had a quarterback, or if they could have had a head coach that could coach that defense, like a Sean McDermott, and he led the offense, I mean, possibly. I mean, they possibly could have beaten the Jacksonville Jaguars. They could have gone further, but
can we talk about how they need to make a slot for the greatest backup quarterback of all time in the Hall of Fame and give it to Fitz already?
Yeah, he would definitely be in the running. I would definitely say so. So, but yeah, that about does it for this week. I want to thank John. Thank you again for joining this podcast. It's been fun, right?
It's been really fun. I'm glad to be here and very excited to keep doing this week in and week out with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely, Bronson. I know you're very like, oh, I don't know if I have the time. I don't know if I can do this, but man, I mean, it's been fun, right?
Go fuck yourself. Yeah, of course.
All right. On that note, thank you for everybody to listen. It'll probably just be a couple people. It'll probably be our friends, but whatever. Hey, man, just go support our podcast. I'll get this uploaded and have a great night.
How about you listen and just send a fucking link to a friend, you assholes? Just pass the word along. It takes 2 seconds.
It does. Yes. Come on.
Come on. All right. With that, we are going to end it, and I'm going to go ahead and play this song to end it, and meet you guys, and have a good night, everybody.